Hi everybody, Zach here for another episode of our flagship program, The Spideydude Experience. This episode is brought to you by our loyal patrons over at patreon.com/Spideydude Network. Pledge today and get both early access to content on the main channel, as well as entirely exclusive content, like brand new shows and commentaries for old Spidey stuff, including commentaries for the MTV series, for example, as well as the video editions for voices from the Eyrie Gargoyles Podcast. And our Patreon first show focused on the Krakoan era of X-Men. We also want to encourage you to check out our other programs that are all available on Audio Edition. These are all over on Spideydude.com, and they're available on your favorite podcasting app. Shows like Clone Saga Chronicles, the show that started this entire network, Spectacular Radio, Spectacular Sal Buscema era podcast, Amazing Spider-Man Classics, the Slot Symposium, and the sister program on this channel, Make Mine Mayday. As always, be sure to hit the like button. It really does help us big time in the algorithm. And additionally, if you have topics you'd like to cover on a live show or in a recorded medium, make sure to leave a comment down below the description or shoot us an email at SpideydudeRadioNetwork@gmail.com. Finally, make sure to join our community. Be alerted to all new updates by hitting that subscribe button and clicking on the bell. But to be clear, your viewership is more than enough for us. And if you want to hang out with us off YouTube, you can always go to our Discord, where we have all sorts of fun stuff, or you can join us on our social medias and follow us there. All the links are down in the description below. As always, we want to be making some references to visual aids and or live comments. If you're an audio listener, pay that no mind, but leave that 5-star review for us. Any and all feedback we will read on future episodes. Thank you, and without further ado, let's get rolling with this episode of the Spideydude Experience. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Spideydude Experience. I'm Zach Joyner, your friendly neighborhood webmaster of Spideydude.com, and executive producer of the Spideydude Radio Network. And I am joined for the final time for a little bit by our good friend, Adam Schingle. Hello, Adam.
Oh, hi. How's it going?
So it's just me and Adam tonight. Looks like the rest of the crew is not going to be available. Want to give a shout out to Neil. He is the birthday boy today. So happy birthday to Neil.
Happy birthday, Neil.
They
grow up so fast.
I know, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about New York Comic Con a little bit, because we didn't talk about it during the Unlimited. So I'm going to get that pulled up. We're also going to talk a little bit about today. There was a look ahead video that was dropped, because today is the final episode, the season series finale of Agatha All Along. And so with that, they dropped a basically what's next on Disney Plus. And amongst those was a particular announcement of a date for the upload is taking too long. What in the world? So anyway, January 29th, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man Marvel animation is going to be coming out. I will leave the link to the video in the description below. So yeah, this is a screen cap from the video, January 29th. So kind of interesting. It didn't come out this year. This has been the long gestating show. This was originally Spider-Man freshman year. That was going to be like a prequel to Spider-Man before, as they got further into development, they decided to make its own thing. So, which is fine. Eric says, happy birthday to Triskull. Speaking of Paul, we were going to try to get him on, but he is in recovery right now. He's trying to recover his voice. So you'll get to hear his thoughts on the end of the Wells run next month. So here's the end, but the moment has been prepared for. What's up, Andrew? What's up, Ethan? And we got Radiac already. Boy, I can't wait if Zach will rant about Ben. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. So, issue 60 today, and 59 and 60.
Yeah, I gotta 59. Get 59. We can breeze through.
There's not much to 59.
So there's really not that much to 60.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and then 4 other stories.
Yeah, basically.
It's all very, yeah.
Really, the 59 was kind of the end of the whole story, and this is kind of like the coda.
Yeah. The epilogue.
Yeah. So, man, this is so I'm going to find NYCC Reddit Spider-Man. So, from Reddit, this is, okay, so from Comics Beat. So as we talked about, there was going to be the Spider-Man and his Venomous Friends panel at New York Comic Con. And for the second year in a row, an awkward escalation occurred between longstanding editor Nick Lowe and some Marvel fandom, both at the in-person panel and online. The online report led to fans' critique of his editorial choices, along with questions as to what exactly happened during the panel. I know what happened with both because, well, he was there. So the first event, Marvel's panel kerfuffle. This is from comicsbeat.com reporting. At NYCC, Marvel panels usually give out exclusive collectible comics at the end, which requires staying until the finish. However, for this panel, attendees could pick up their comics during the Q&A, so no one was being pressured to actually stay in this room. And I don't know where some of that rumor came from, but he can confirm that it was false. The writer being Christian Angeles. So, the panel was led by Spider-Man editor Nick Lowe, joined by Jordan D. White, Joe Kelly, and Al Ewing on the stage. Dan Slott was supposed to attend, but he abstained from coming to NYCC because he was recovering from COVID. Kicked off a little earlier than usual, as Lowe was trying to rally enthusiasm and humor amongst the crowd. There were trailer videos and a funny voiceover featuring Al Ewing trying his best to narrate at a fast pace on the screen. Reception to the Spider-Man plans was a mix between lukewarm receptions, but also some surprising positives, such as a surprise appearance from Charles Soule, who was announcing his and Jesus Solis's upcoming run with Eddie Brock as Carnage. And I have to stress all of this for context because this panel was about an average regular Marvel panel at NYCC, at least until the Q&A is when it began. At the very first, fan asked a very pointed question about Kamala Khan and her treatment at Marvel. Lowe's response to the question didn't help much. So that's the context. So if you guys recall last year around New York Comic Con, very similar situation. The Kamala stuff was very fresh on people's minds. No, I'll answer that in a minute. Avi, why are you trolling? Why are you trolling? So again, there was a lot of pointed questions. So here's from the actual Reddit post. It says awkward end to Q&A at the Spidey panel at NYCC. Nick opened the door for questions, and the first person up immediately started asking about the misogynistic treatment of female characters in the main Spider-Man line, Peter and his relationship with MJ/Paul, and the fridging of Kamala Khan XYZ. Nick said that he disagreed with the premise of the question, clarifying that Kamala was a big part of the book and the story. The fan clarified that she only appeared in about 25 panels.
Yeah.
Nick said thank you and asked for the next question. Fan asked if any male characters would be killed in the same fashion. Nick said they kill male characters at Marvel all the time. A fan replied, outside of their own book. Thank you. Next question. He spoke over the fan until they bowed down or the mic was turned off. Whatever happened first. If anyone has a more clear transcript or recollection to the question, please share. Just thought it was so crazy to witness the Spidey office being forced to be responsive to a disgruntled fan complaints, which we normally read on Reddit/X, instead of hearing them out and being transparent. They doubled down on the same tired excuses and moved on to the next question. So this Reddit post did a semi-decent job summarizing, but the writer is going to clarify because a lot of context in a words exchange are missing regarding what actually happened in this back and forth. Problem that happened on the stage wasn't so much this line of questioning regarding the misogynistic writing, whom I think many Marvel fans would agree people have rightfully taken issue with regarding the fridging/death, but not really death because comics of Kamala Khan, so much that emotions started to run very high. For better or worse, Lowe got incredibly defensive in public and let that fan keep grilling him and tried to countersuit. What you read above is a short version on what was a longer and snappy back and forth, the one that went on far longer than it should have. After the first question from that fan, Lowe would try to counter back with an argument in lieu of professionally just answering a single fan question or two and then moving on. He also began his response with questioning with a counter argument of passive aggression by disagreeing with the premise of the question, his actual words, invalidating the very premise of that fan's opinion. To the audience, it did seem a somewhat condescending response. There's also a widely used term for this in popular psychology now regarding the questioning of whether or not a person's beliefs is true, called gaslighting. Mind you, I say this having a background working in psychology for 7 years as a specialist before becoming a journalist. In Nick's defense, he was a deer in the headlights, caught absolutely off guard for this line of questioning. And I say this admittedly because I was also off guard as a reporter who thought this panel was just about over already and was genuinely shocked like everybody else. It didn't help that while this brief 5 or so minute exchange occurred, there was a deafening silence in the room. Wouldn't call it as agreement or disagreement or extreme of a declaration as outright writer's misogyny, but I will say that many fans still remain upset over how Marvel editorial handled the death of Kamala Khan in an event that didn't even seem to happen in her own book, especially when we knew she wasn't dead. I think a good moderator would have cut this line of questioning off earlier, or better yet, not even engage with the defensiveness of in the first place. Just give a take it or leave it answer to an honest fan's opinion question, and then move on. That said, the room did quiet back down after resuming a normal functioning Q&A, where even kids came up to the microphone to ask questions. As reports of the exchange hit the internet, more of the eternal online complaints over Marvel's handling of the Spider-Man bubbled up. Another online-only incident was unfolding, stemming from that same panel. So, second event, the announcement that really didn't actually happen. Breaking news, Justina Ireland has been announced as the first woman to write a run of issues of Amazing Spider-Man here at New York Comic Con. So, there's a misreport who tweeted that Nick Lowe just credited Justina Ireland as the first woman to write a run of issues of Amazing Spider-Man. Problem is this never actually happened and was later proven false and corrected by Gorga. Spider-Man has had at least 2 women writers, including the great Ann Nocenti back in the day, and more recently Kelly Thompson, who took umbrage with the misinformation as revealed in a now deleted tweet. Well, yeah. As outlined, outraged world mixing and melding with outrage over the actual events of the panel, Gorga posted direction, but the damage was done. So more or less, this was just a giant clusterfuck. I'm sorry.
Pretty much.
it was. We're 13 minutes in. I can use the F-bomb. This was just absolutely a colossal. And this is the problem also, I think, sometimes with when we as fans report. At least with, Comics Beat, they're a website that reports on stuff just like Popverse and stuff like that. I've seen Christian's work in the past. I know he's a journalist. So, that is right. But then you have people that are saying things like, and I even engaged on this on Reddit because I was like, wait, we've seen Ann Nocenti do this. She wrote several issues of Amazing Spider-Man in the 80s and 90s. Never was it a consistent run. That is true. That part, two things
like
can be
arc.
true at once. Yeah.
It was Mad Dog Ward, and that was
the 2 Mad Dog Wards. Yeah, there was 2 Mad Dog Ward stories, which were awful. Sorry.
I see a lot of people. I've heard that, but I see a lot of people these days say that Mad Dog Ward is good. So I don't know.
I listen, I reread it recently, and I can tell you that it was a chore to get through. Both of them. So look, I think first of all, I kind of feel like the fan. Look, both sides were not in the right. I understand the fans' frustration, but there are ways to ask that question and clarify things. Be like, hey, if it had been me, I'd been like, hey, there's been some things that were said online about Kamala's death. Can you confirm that it was done for corporate synergy? And that, to me, would have been a better way of asking the question than sitting there saying, the guy's a misogynist,
Right.
Right, because that automatically puts
Yeah.
the person that you're asking the question on defensively. And so
Yeah.
Nick Lowe reacts the way that anybody else would react if faced with this question. He was blindsided. And I think that the Comics Beat report does a better job describing of what actually happened. So I'm glad that there was somebody there that actually kind of like walked us through. Because frankly, the other thing too is that fan, listen, picking a fight with editorial is a losing battle. You're not going to look good. They're not going to look good. Like, as somebody that was a part of, that other place during the infamous slot whacker wars that we, refer to back in the late 2000s, I can tell you that looking back on that stuff now, nobody came out looking good there. And this is the same way. And a lot of the stuff on Twitter that we're seeing too, and a lot of the engagement with Lowe and even in the letters pages too, because look, I know that there's a concerted effort for people to write in to Nick Lowe to address their concerns. Listen, you guys, I'm sorry. Until Nick Lowe leaves, things are going to be this way, or until there is a change in editorial some way. And that's just the way the cookie's going to crumble. Do I think that Nick Lowe's been there probably too long? Yes. Do I think that he represents a lot of the same philosophies that like a Brevoort and a Casada and stuff like that? Yes. So hopefully getting a fresh set of eyes is going to be there. But eventually Nick Lowe's going to leave. And you just got to... Yeah. These fights just build animosity and serve no one, as Hobby's saying. We do not speak about Mad Dog Ward. Those people are wrong, according to Hobby. So yeah. So like I say, it was one of those things that I can tell you as a fan, it's frustrating because because there's things that Nick Lowe does I think is right. I've enjoyed Spectacular Spider-Man more on this panel than anybody else. Yes, I know I'm biased. Yes, I know we're friendly with Greg, but I've enjoyed that book legitimately. I love Ultimate Spider-Man. They've done a great job with it, but it's also an entirely different department. We talked about this often about Amazing Spider-Man. Listen, this is the box they want to stick him in. And you gotta stay in the lines of this box. What is interesting is that they did announce in the letters pages today that Joe Kelly's the ongoing writer. Does this go beyond 8 Deaths of Spider-Man? That's going to be a big question. So we'll see what happens. Okay. So anything else? Oh, I mean, we already talked about the Legend stuff. So there is no new Legend stuff since last episode, so we will move on from there. We have a lot of great conversations happening in the comments section, so thank you guys. So watch us live here on YouTube and watch the live stream texts. So okay, let's talk a little bit about next few. This is tonight is our season finale of the Wells era. We'll have a couple more episodes.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah. Season 4, Wells, is coming to an end. Season 5, we're kind of going to do 4.5, so kind of a short season as we get through 8 Deaths of Spider-Man. We get to the other side of it. I think that kind of allows us to have that room, and then we'll have like an official season 5 for when we get post 8 Deaths of Spider-Man. Just the way this cookie's crumbling. So, okay. So we have 2 issues to cover tonight, right, Adam?
Yes.
So let's get to issue 59. There's not much to issue 59. I'll be completely frank and honest, because it's mostly a fight sequence, like a big fight sequence. So
yeah.
Issue 59, the cover picks up right where we left off from the last issue, where Spidey is literally going through the glass with Tombstone. So We pick up right where we left off. Tombstone gets Spidey into a car. They continue to fight. Tombstone keeps telling Spidey that this should have been between him and his daughter. Leave, and Peter's like, leave her alone. So, freaking, she gets to the subway and Tombstone catches up to her before freaking Peter grabs a freaking light pole and beats the crap out of Tombstone, while Janice gets in the freaking subway train. So tries to get to the back of it. Peter and Tombstone continue to fight. And, Tombstone's just completely blinded with rage. He's bleeding. And Peter's like, we're going to finish it here. And so the two of them continue to fight intensely and have this intense battle. Ronnie punches the wall and breaks his hand. And Peter then kicks Lonnie. It looks like he's about to, he goes into the train and he's like, feel better. So Peter's like, you have to stop, Lonnie. Lonnie eventually rolls up onto the tracks. Peter ends up saving his life and says that was dumb. He tells him he should have walked away. And Peter kind of tells Lonnie that he wasn't just saving his daughter, he was saving Lonnie. And Lonnie then gives up. The two of them pass out from the exhaustion of the fight to be concluded in the next issue. So we get spiders and symbiotes, which is a new kind of like reminds me of the old bullpen bulletins back in the day, which is like I think is kind of nice. Hope we see more of that. Well, Javi goes, dude, did he break his hand? Because I know we're talking about superheroes. Listen, I think there was a lot of broken bones. So, we get to issue 60, and so
let's grade 59 first.
Yeah, let's get grade 59. What do you think of 59 as a grade?
Well, I think art-wise, I give it an A+. I think this is Romita Jr.'s best art of the whole run.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was really impressed. He seems rested and just energized throughout the whole thing. I thought it was just great. Story-wise, I felt like it was kind of lacking. And this really, I mean, it was fine, but like, it just, you see the detriments of the twice a month schedule here, because 58 and 59 could have been one issue. And I think if the book wasn't twice a month, if the book was monthly, then 58 and 59 would have been one issue.
This felt like, so in my Q&A with Romita Jr. earlier this year, he kind of talked about how, since he's so used to writing Marvel style, I think that this was one of those issues where they're like, okay, these are like, they probably just gave him an outline and said, okay, just make the fight. And I kind of feel that way. And so I feel like I agree with you in this regard that yes, this is amongst the best work he's done. I think both issues he does exceptional work. But this is highlighting a lot of Romita Jr.'s strengths, and that is nobody can do a fight scene like Romita Jr. I mean, he, especially when he's just given completely carte blanche. The cinematography element of it, for lack of a better term, the storytelling element, the way it's sequentially done, is extremely well done. And Romita Jr., this is where Romita Jr.'s, this is where a really experienced artist like Romita Jr. shines in these type of issues, because the art is carrying this story, right?
Yeah.
There's
that's why.
There's not a ton of dialogue. It's mostly just two men beating the and I get it. There's a lot of like there was a lot of hyperbole with the solicitation, the most brutal battle ever.
And I do want to say, I do want to say, like, I do feel like they were overselling it there, because I don't feel the same. It doesn't feel as, to me, it doesn't feel as, it doesn't quite feel as brutal as, say, the Moreland fight, if we're gonna, keep it Romita Jr. related. I feel like something like Moreland was more like that was more brutal. There was more of a sense of dread, fear, hopelessness, helplessness, but then, using his brain, he figures it out, and it, but this was kind of like, I feel like we kind of, we know that they're gonna pull this off somehow. Like, there's not, like, I guess the only real danger is, like, is Janice going to die? Right. And spoilers, no. But I would say, yeah, I mean, but it's very, like, the fight though itself is, it's very,
I would say it's a top 10 brutal fight in Spidey's history.
Yeah. It's one of the more, it's an interesting one, because it's like they're running through the city and going into the subway and all that. Like,
yeah,
I also from the apartment to the streets, through the city to the subway. That's interesting in and of itself.
The one thing I will say about it too, comparing the Moreland fight to this one, is I think the best and worst part about this book is that, compared to the Moreland fight, is I think that there was more a full script with JMS, because JMS wrote his books more like as a director or as a script writer. And then Romita was more the cinematographer. Here, it's Romita directing the fight completely. And then Zeb kind of going in and kind of hodgepodging it back. So there is a subtle difference between the two. Both are equal, like they're both really brutal fights. I just think that between the two, that I feel like is the difference.
Yeah.
What was your grade
for this? I guess maybe like a B-ish, probably.
B-ish. So officially his grade is B-ish. I'm going to give this. I'm going to give it a B-, just because I don't think there was a lot of story here. That kind of feels like that. There's not a lot of meat to this bone to gnaw on, and so with that, I feel like we're kind of at a point with this book where it's like, okay, this is definitely like final. This was like final boss fight syndrome, where you are at the end of the game.
I probably would. Honestly, I'd probably. Hold on. What did I give the last one? I mean, I'd probably give this like a B+, A- if 58 and 59 were one issue, maybe.
Listen, I mean, reading it back to back, I'll be honest, this is going to read great in a trade. Like the last 5 issues are going to read really well in a trade. So yeah. But yeah, it's odd. Radiac says, I wanted to point out that it's odd for the second time in Wells to make a highlight of a story, the parent going for their child, keeping it PG for what it's worth. I forgot about Shed. Thanks, buddy. I too like the sequence more so reading the issues in one go. The cover of 59 was also a nice touch, calling out the good too. So Hobby says, in his opinion, ditch the extra stories from 60 into a giant-sized issue that combines 59 and 60. That would have felt a little more satisfying.
I mean, you could have done that too. You could have just had 58 through 60 be one thing, and
yeah. Holy shit, Walter! This is the Halloween show. Come on. I know Zach is dressed up as a Cowboys fan who's happy. Adam is Peter Parker. Well played. Thank you, Walter. Walter with the super chat. What about the Mayan god who went after Paul? I mean,
It keeps
he's
happening.
dead. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that did not come back into play. People thought
a lot. Yeah, people. There's things that don't happen. That
people
they
were
thought
thinking
were
that people were thinking that was going to happen again near the end. That was maybe going to be the big blowout of the run, and that did not happen. Which good. We did not need that to be retread.
Thank you, Walter. Really do appreciate it, buddy. All right, so let's get to issue number 60. And so this is going to be, I think we're going to do the main story first.
Sure.
And then we'll do the other stories kind of together in like one recap. So you good with that, Adam?
Yeah, probably.
All right. So previously, hang on. Still got that, I think. Previously on Spider-Man. So obviously Tombstone fought Spider-Man. We get to New York City, the criminal courts building. The judge then says that the court is shocked and disappointed is an understatement. Essentially, the case is being thrown out because of the fight between Tombstone and Spider-Man.
Which seems kind of ludicrous.
Yeah. Basically because the Star Witness basically disappeared.
Yeah. She fled because it's all right. It's weird because they're like, oh, Tombstone broke out of jail. Did they say he was on? They didn't say he was on parole.
He was on parole.
Oh no, yeah, actually no. That's right. He was actually. I forgot because it seemed impossible that he would be on parole, but yeah. I don't know. Basically, Spider-Man's involvement in the fight and the fact that Janice fled the state makes they dismiss the case. It's like, huh?
Yeah.
But then we do learn that Tombstone basically paid off the judge, so it makes a little more sense.
Yeah. So right after the dismissal, Peter yells, "What?" in the courtroom. Jen Walters looks a little shocked. And Jen was kind of like talking about to Peter, like, I told you the judge was tough, because she did say that a few issues back. So then we get Tombstone trying to say, let's take a ride. And Peter's like, bro, I've done this twice. I ain't doing it again.
Yeah. Third time is not the charm.
And Jen was like, please, Lonnie, I'm begging you. She just wants to punch him in the face. He basically, Tombstone's like, I want you to give a message to Spider-Man. I want you to tell him that I got to the judge, that this isn't Spider-Man's fault. It's just one of those things. But specifically he says, quote, because I want him to know he won fair and square, but that's not how the world works. And before he leaves, he goes, I want you to thank him for me. He'll know why. Peter's like, you're a weird dude, Lincoln, but I think we all know why, because he saved him from himself.
Yeah.
So we get to later.
That's a callback to, you're a weird dude, Parker, and I think he said, did he say that to Spider-Man too? I don't know.
Yeah. So later we get Aunt May. Peter, finally meeting up with his aunt that he hasn't seen since Methuselah was a small child. Aunt May is serving at the feast center, and Aunt May is kind of losing her mind. Like, because Peter is bandaged up from the battle, and Aunt May's like, he's gonna get you killed someday. Yeah. So then the sirens go off, Spider-Sense goes off. Peter then gets everybody that was outside being served food at the feast center inside, because guess who showed up? Zeb Wells' favorite character, the Sandman. I also want to note there's a really good tribute to John Cassidy at the very beginning of the book. So Sandman is here, and he's basically saying, it's William Baker. No, it's Flint Marko. So basically we get a kind of a callback to the last time we saw Sandman. Peter's trying to throw this doohickey to get him separated. Aunt May ends up going back outside looking for Peter. She's like, "Is this what you dropped?" Throws the doohickey. Peter eventually uses it, and it starts raining down mud balls. Aunt May goes, "Did I just help you kill someone?" Kind of comical. And then she's kind of yelling at him and talking about how, "Can you please leave my nephew alone?"
Mm-hmm.
And so Peter, as Spider-Man, says, "Peter, he works with me because he wants to help." No, that's not right. He needs to help. We've gone our separate ways a few times and it never sticks because he knows if someone is in trouble and he doesn't call me, well, he won't be able to live with himself because he wouldn't have done everything in his power to help. And at that point, May kind of was resigned to Peter being Peter.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we get to Harlem, where White Rabbit basically resigns and says, "I'm out of here, you asshole."
Yeah. And she takes Kareem with her.
Yeah, Kareem is leaving with White Rabbit. So we get to Queens. Peter is eating pizza, Bruno's with Aunt May. Aunt May is, kind of talking about how she's done a lot of thinking. And she's like, "When my nephew runs off, tells a white lie, or gets himself hurt, it's because someone needs help, isn't it?" Yes. She talks about how somewhere Ben is smiling. And then calls. I don't know if he calls him a dick. She calls him a dick, but she calls the Sandman a jerk or some sort of slur.
Yeah. Some sort of expletive, yeah.
There's an expletive thrown out, which made me laugh. That is the end of Zeb Wells's and John Romita Jr.'s run on Amazing Spider-Man. But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
So the first story was titled
Doctor's Orders.
Was it Doctor's Orders?
Yes.
Okay. No.
Well, Wells and McGinnis.
Yeah, Wells McGinnis. I was like, they don't give the title to the John Romita Jr.
Oh yeah.
So,
whatever. I mean, they don't title the main stories that much anymore.
Yeah, that's true. So we get a double page splash of like another title sequence. We want to just go through the rest of these and just do everything as one.
Yeah, basically, okay, there's Doctor's Orders, Wells and McGinnis, Spidey's at the vet. Well, no, he's not at the vet. I don't know, but
it says General Hospital. So yeah,
it says General Hospital, but it seems like he's at the vet, and it seems like he's talking about a pet. And who is the pet? It's Wreck Rap, and Wreck Rap is fine. He survived his ordeal last time, and he's playing around with the Goblin glider that impaled him, and he presses a button, flies away, and leaves Peter with the bill, which is $3,000. Oh, $3,000, yeah.
So again, Team Up Part 2, which this is going to get everybody in the comment section.
The dichromator. Oh yeah, Wells and Knock. The dichromator from Spencer's run that Wells wrote. It was like issue 25 or so. That like weird. He basically Spidey and Jackpot are fighting him, and they beat him. And Jonah's there, and he's like, "Oh, I've been trying to do this for a while." And they're like, "Yeah, well, we did it, so shut up." And they're like, "Oh, we're late for a very important date." They both go to meet Paul and Shay. They're doing a double date. And Mary Jane basically understands what Peter has been doing all this time. And there's a nice little interaction between them where she says, "Thank you for coming to save me." And he says, "I'll always come for you, MJ," eventually. And they smile at each other. And then they're basically they're on their double date. And then Chasm is watching
in the shadows, pulling a cane.
Yeah.
Also, everyone's favorite character, Paul, comes up with an excuse to Shay as to why they're late. So then we get to arguably one of the best stories in the entire issue, which is
but like it's kind of unnecessary.
It's
nice and the art is great, but this didn't really need to be here. But I guess like I don't know, they wanted extra pages, and Wells probably thought, well, I'll do a sequel to this one story that people like from like 10 years ago.
So it's a sequel to basically every year Peter and Logan get together and hang out for his birthday. Apparently, there was a bar fight that occurred. It's drawn by Pablo Rivera, and so yeah,
that's basically it.
Yeah, that's it. Basically, the two of them go their separate ways. The thumbnail is from this actual issue, so if you watch this live on YouTube, that's where it comes from. Then we get same Spider channel. Wells is the writer. Patrick Gleason is the artist. So we get Bushwhacker, who is back again, and Peter's fighting Bushwhacker. Bushwhacker's like saying that he's fought him in the past. Peter doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
And Chasm shows up.
Yep, Chasm shows up.
Him.
And like punches him in the next week. Blame the psycho-reactive goo, doesn't last long, but neither will him, so he's eventually defeated. We get basically a standoff between Peter and Chasm. They then go for coffee, which, if you're a Ben Reilly fan, kind of callback. Also callback to the Beyond era, which was kind of the start of the Wells run.
Yeah, it's basically this is basically going back to the first couple Beyond things, the conversation that Peter and Ben had in the beginning of that, and then also that first story that teased Ben in the new suit. Anyway, that's why Bushwhacker's like, oh, I fought you before with a new suit, and Peter's like, I don't remember fighting you. That's because it was Ben. Anyway,
so
they basically have a conversation where Ben is like, oh, I'm over the Spider-Man thing. I'm just gonna do my own thing now. Me and Janine are fine, and we're just gonna live our lives. And Peter's like, that's great, thank God. And then Ben's just like, yeah, I lied about all that, and I'm gonna.
Well, because we're also getting the Curse of Cain going on at the same time,
right?
So we still got another issue of that, which is the way this all fell. So we'll see what happens at the end of that. We then get
watches and he waits.
Yeah, in the shadows, like Cain, because Ben is Cain now. We then get the return of Mark Buckingham. Has not been seen since Spectacular Spider-Man number 27. So Joe Kelly and Mark Buckingham, Spider-Man interrupts a bunch of heist guys. Turns out it's Override, who has not been seen since literally the reboot. And Peter, eventually is able to defeat Override.
And basically we have Dr. Doom narrating why he's choosing Spider-Man to be his stand-in for the upcoming 8 Deaths thing.
Yeah, so basically Spider-Man will be my champion in the Covenant. He will fight, but not for me, but for them. He will suffer for them. Spider-Man will die for them and die again and again. So we then get
Doom.
So says Doom. So that is the setup to next issue, which comes out in a couple of weeks. So we get a few different letter writers, notably the creator of the co-creator of the Amazing Spider Talk podcast, Dapper Dan Gavizian. He is kind of talking about how he's not feeling it, and gives a lot of reasons why. Then we get that's the last fan letter, and then we get a letter from Zeb Wells, which I will read. So he says, quote, "That was a wild ride, not to mention a dream come true. Over 60 issues of Amazing Spider-Man in the can, and if I may leave you with one piece of advice from my time on this book, if you ever get a chance to write The Amazing Spider-Man with John Romita Jr. and Scott Hanna taking lead on the art, do it. And if Ed McGuinness, Patrick Gleason, and Todd Knock are along for the ride, run, don't walk. The Amazing Spider-Man has to come out every 2 weeks, and even so, it was one of the best-looking books on the shelves. I want to make sure 2 heroes who made the book possible don't go unsung. Marcinio Minez colored the book with a passion that never once wavered. And Joe Caramagna lettered it with a virtuosity that made every page sing. It's the kind of collaboration that makes you question if you ever want to work with anyone else. A good problem to have. That said, writing a bi-weekly book is no easy task. In fact, I scream at everyone who asks why I look so tired. There is no way I would have kept up without Nick Lowe as my editor. our late-night spitballing, story-breaking phone calls made for one of the most meaningful collaborations of Wells' career. Nick, this has been a blast, and I couldn't have done it without you. Thanks for believing in me every step of the way. I will never forget it. Or you, Caden, for keeping us on the rails. I know Caden's the assistant editor, by the way. I need to thank the writers and artists who came before, building the foundation laid by Steve Ditko, Stan Lee, and John Romita Sr. to give me an incredible chest of toys to play with. Dan Slott and Nick Spencer in particular created many fantastic concepts I picked up and ran with. And let's not forget JMD Mateus, one of the GOATs whose shadow I was more than happy to play in. I hope I did you guys proud. But all good things must come to an end, and I now look forward to enjoying ASM as a fan. Joe Kelly, my favorite Spider-Man writer in the modern era, is taking over, I hear. I can't wait to see what he's got in store for us. And finally, I want to thank the readers, every last one of you. I know the passion you showed, both positive and negative, came from the same deep well of love we all have for this character, Peter Parker, the Amazing Spider-Man. It's been an honor of a lifetime to have been part of this book. With love, Zeb Wells. So, all right. Then we get Nick Lowe's response. So I will read that now. All right. So Zeb Wells. Thanks, Zeb. Not just for this note, but for everything. When it was time to start picking a new writer for The Amazing Spider-Man, I thought back some of my favorite Spider-Man stories, especially the ones that made me feel things. That's what I'm looking for in art always. So I thought of Spider-Man Dr. Octopus Year 1, Shed, Old Hunting Buddies, and more. Stories that not only made me feel for Peter Parker and go on a journey with him, but stories that made me feel for the villains too. That's why I went after Zeb, and I couldn't be more proud of the work he did on this book. Between putting the hurt on Peter and digging into Tombstone and Norman and Ock and Ben and Janine and Queen and Goblin Queen, Queen Goblin. I thought it was Goblin Queen.
That's Queen Goblin.
Zeb poured his heart into these characters in this book and made it all sing. Thank you, Zeb, for being an incredible collaborator and amazing writer. Dang it, I'd be sobbing uncontrollably, but on the plus side, I don't have to say goodbye to anyone else. Neither Johnny and Scott nor Ed and Mark are going anywhere. Marcio's sticking around with us too, as is Joe Camaranga. Starting in 2 weeks, we're kicking off the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man. We're adding a Joe to the mix with Joe Kelly spearheading that epic story, with Justina Ireland bringing her writing talents to the table too. Ed McGuinness and Mark Palmer are the art vanguard and spine for the book. Gleb Mekanoff, Kefu, and Andrea Ricardo round out the art team with their excellence. And if you saw from that preview by Joe Kelly and legend Mark Buckingham, Dr. Doom is involved. How? Why? You'll have to come back in 2 weeks. But to find out, it involves a new metallic spider costume. Don't believe me? Check out these covers. Spidey gets some new threads in time to take on foes way out of his league. Who are the Scions of Kitterak, and why and how are they killing Peter Parker again and again? The 8 Deaths of Spider-Man runs from ASM 61 through 70 and will leave you breathless. After that, well, you'll have to wait and see what kind of web fluid we're mixing up. We'll miss you, Zeb. Keep whipping, everybody. Nick Lowe. So that is... Holy crap! Can we all agree that Aunt May needs to go to a wood chipper with dope plates that shoots into acid that is on fire, and the ashes put into a rocket that goes into the sun with Paul tied to the rocket? Woo!
No, but I think that this is a missed opportunity for Peter to just tell Aunt May that he's Spider-Man.
Matt Bird, I already talked about that earlier. Oh, Gobby Mommy. I don't care about this. I know, Tavia. We know, buddy. We know you don't care about it. So thank you again for. Okay, so let me go ahead and go first, Adam. Let's let you give your grade for this overall issue. We'll do 2 grades. We'll do the front story and then the backups. How's that sound?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. What's your grade?
What is it? Well, I think main story. I think I'll just go because I was thinking like the whole thing. I'd say like for the whole issue maybe C+. Like for the backups probably like I don't know B or something.
B. Okay, so C+. So why is it a C+?
I don't know if it was that satisfying a conclusion to the Tombstone thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed kind of
anticlimactic.
Yeah, basically that. half-baked, anticlimactic. But I like the Sandman fight, and I do think Romita Jr.'s art is great in the issue, and I more or less like the Aunt May stuff, even because it kind of brings that full circle. But but it does feel like there's a missed opportunity here to basically have him reveal his identity to her. It's like it's set up pretty well, but they kind of find a way to just sort of weasel out of it. But I think it would have been a stronger idea to just tell her that he's Spider-Man in this moment, because she would probably be able to handle it. It seems, just based on this. I don't know.
Yeah. Hobby agrees with you. He says, yeah, I thought May was going to be on the secret again. I liked it because it felt like May was being a character, not just a prop.
No, yeah, that is good, because that's what we want.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Just I don't know. it's kind of it's an ending, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you followed Zeb Wells' career, his first Spider-Man story was the infamous MTV Beach Bash with Sandman. So, which is like the third. This is like now at least the second "quote unquote" final story that we've seen that has involved Sandman. Like we saw that with what's his name, Zdarsky's Spectacular. The last few issues before his final run were a Sandman story. It's like it's Sandman. Anyway, also a callback to obviously the previous issues with the Shea stuff. Peter's trying to tell Aunt May he's seeing somebody, and Aunt May is like, Anna won't shut up about it because she's like, I think I won. So my grade, I'm giving this a B- and a B. Actually, flip that. It's B and B-.
Okay.
So for me, the backups were fine. I think they served a purpose. Obviously, it was an attempt to try to wrap up some plot threads, but leaving them open-ended, which is something that I think, especially when you look at the history of Amazing Spider-Man, and he kind of references it in his letter, there was pieces to the toys that the next writer picked up. So I would assume that there was some things where Lowe is communicating, okay, where are we at with these characters? We're going to do this kind of event comic that we do every freaking year. I'm going to start the run that way, which I don't like personally.
Yeah.
Because this just feels like it's going to be forgettable. But yeah, so I did like they brought back Mark freaking Buckingham. Like,
sure,
yes, please.
Yeah.
I love Bucky, man. That's like I'm a Paul Jenkins stan, and I loved him and Jenkins together on Spider-Man, and so I think he's done like maybe a couple of fill-ins since issue 27 of Spec. So like, inject that in my veins. I love the fact that we're keeping Ed and Romita Jr. So this. And we're also keeping the numbering going. We're not launching with a new number one.
Well, that'll be after.
We'll see if that happens in January.
They'll probably. I think they will, because this is like the Beyond thing. Like I think Beyond. I've seen some discourse over whether Beyond was filler or not. And I feel like this is kind of the same thing, where Beyond seemed to be like, we need to figure out what we need to like set up something before we actually get someone to write the title. And this seems sort of like the same thing. I think Beyond seemed like filler at the time, but it kind of had a bit more weight to it as Wells' run went on, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, but I have this feeling. 8 Deaths, though. I don't know. I think this whole Doctor Doom thing. It's not gonna have as much prominence going forward after these 10 issues.
So yeah,
but we'll see, I guess.
So I know everybody's kind of expecting me to talk about the Ben thing.
Well, before you do that, I want to, since Jackpot was mentioned, I actually want to say, like, is it just me, or was that kind of, were Peter and Mary Jane like teaming up and like being on the same page and both being late? Was that really fun or what? Like, it's like, if only they were an actual couple that, maybe did that
they were
together.
Meeting, instead of meeting their respective significant others, they were meeting like May and Anna.
Yeah, that would be really fun, wouldn't it? I don't know. I thought that was pretty fun.
Yeah, I really like Nock's arc. I mean, Art can continue to use Todd as a fill-in. I think that's great. The more Todd Nock does, I think is always good. I think he's just he's an extremely nice guy. So I'm all for that. For me, this is the best Jackpot story we've gotten.
Probably.
That's a very low bar, but
it would be cool if she wasn't Jackpot here. I don't know what she would be, but like, I don't know, because the Jackpot thing is just, it's too whatever. Like, I don't know. But if this were like a Renew Your Vows thing or something, that'd be kind of cool.
Hang on, hang on, no. I have not gotten to my Ben rant yet. Don't sit there and assume shit. Damn. Like, to me, yeah, I mean, Excel says,
people would totally be on board if they were together, and because the thing is, like, it actually is fun. Like, I think this backup shows that it works and it's fun. Like, you can actually, you could have that be a status quo, and it
I mean, some
delightful.
Some people are going to be upset that there wasn't that Paul wasn't thrown into the sun. I get it.
Yeah.
But we knew that Shay was going to be sticking around,
right?
From the X, stuff. So we knew that was happening. And again, there's an opportunity to develop Shay as a character. There's no such thing as bad characters. I get that people are like, Paul's a terrible character, she sucks, and even freaking, old man Walter in there is griping about his beau Aunt May. That the only thing she ever did relevant was that she died. I will say this. I mean, when she knew and she was in on the secret, she is far more
interesting.
She's far more interesting as a character, in my opinion. If we're gonna have Jonah Jameson know, Aunt May should know.
Right. Oh yeah.
If Jonah and Flash know, Aunt May should know.
Yeah.
That to me is far more interesting. So like I say, the Gabi Mommy thing, I'm annoyed by, but having a female antagonistic goblin isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't like that it was Ashley. I wish it was just like a new character, personally, but we'll see. I mean, look, there is a lot of issues with Jackpot, and we could have that really deep debate and discussion, I think, at a different point in time, maybe, where there's ways to make it work and make it within character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is... I'd rather we no longer use the name Gabi Mommy than get rid of Paul. Why am I eating? Oh, I'm trying to stay awake. I've been having issues sleeping.
Busted.
Okay. So to me, I think the I think that there is things you can do with MJ as a hero. I don't think it should be a long-term status quo at all, but as a short-term status quo, it could be that way. So speaking of long-term versus short-term,
I just think for this, like, I think it can be fun, and I'm all about having fun.
What is the theme of this run? It's a good question. Let me do my rant first because I'm going to get sidetracked with the questions.
Question, actually.
It is a great question. We'll come back to it. In fact, I'm going to store it so that way I don't forget it. If you have any other questions, throw it in the chat for me, and we'll answer it after I get done with my rant. So, concerning Ben, first of all, I loved the artwork. Artwork is great. More Patrick Gleason, please.
Right.
Full stop. However, this was a hollow bullshit thing because it does nothing to fix the issue. It's basically Ben manipulating Peter and going, oh, I'm going to stay away from you. And then like, I'm going to be your shadow. So we're turning him into Kane from the 90s. That's not what anybody fucking wanted.
They really could have, they really could have just left it. Like there's no, I would say it's maybe not perfect, but it would be good, fine, good enough to just sort of, okay, yeah, we've come to a truce and everything's cool. But then it's like but
then 2 pages later, we are completely nullifying that. Like if
now,
we didn't have those...
now I saw people think that like this is basically something that'll probably come back for the run after 8 Deaths, and it could potentially be a Gleason thing if he were to be the writer. Right. But we'll see. But that would be it, because I don't know if people have really been talking about him taking over, so that would be interesting if he took over, because I think people might be for that.
Look, I wouldn't mind Gleason being a part of the run. Don't get me wrong. Excuse me. So I just think that I'm extremely frustrated with people were, Wells was like, I think we're going to do something cool with Ben. And this is not Wells's fault. This is all editorial. And this is why it's so frustrating, because I don't give a, and look, I am on record because I went back and listened to old podcast. I had said, maybe you bring him back as a villain. That version of me was wrong. Not with these people. If it was a JMD Mateus or somebody that cared about the character and got into the psychology of it, the thing about this all is that the chasm issue is that you have stripped away everything that makes Ben unique by taking away all his Spider-Man stuff and taking away all his existence as Ben Reilly. Like, there was a joke in there that it did make me laugh, not gonna lie, where Ben or Peter, being a human being, was asking about Janine or Eve, and he's like, well, I called her MJ this one time and she's never let me live it down. That made me laugh because that's a very meta joke for those that know. If you know, you know. In fact, I probably should explain. There was during Brand New Day, there was an issue where Mary Jane came back and Peter is like, there's all these little flashbacks to like previous issues, and they used the wrong flashback.
Yeah.
It was Janine and Ben,
I've seen that. Yeah.
It was supposed to be a bit from Revelations. It was corrected in the digital and the trade, but in the original, it was Janine and Ben. So, like I say, I don't love it. I don't. Now, I have not read Chasm Chasm Curse of Cain Part 3. So I don't know any about any of that. I saw some of this the day before because Bleeding Cool did an article on it. This to me it's one of the issues, but I don't blame Wells for this. I blame Nick Lowe. And Nick, I love you, but man, this really pisses me off. As a Ben Reilly fan, if I was at New York Comic Con, this is the shit that I would be hammering home. Like, this is my hill. This is my Roman Empire. This is the hill that I'm going to die on. God, you got me cutting a damn promo. Chasm, whatever. Chasm. Go on. And here's the thing. I don't like ranting on this show. I don't like going on these rants and doing these things because, like, it's rage bait and it's everybody freaking does it. But damn it, like, this is. There's no. Well, listen, I couldn't say your last name for 20 years, so that's fine.
Well.
Chasm. Sorry, not Chasm. Chasm. This is Anthony Sebra all over again. Well, I appreciate that you like my rants, Tevye, but the thing is like, I don't like rage bait. I don't like rage bait. So it's not, I want it to mean something. Like when I make these type of things, I want it to be meaningful because that to me separates it from the rest of the noise. If it's somebody that's not normally a person that does these ridiculous, because like, look, in a past life, podcasting wise, going on rants was something that was somewhat more regular for me. And as I've grown older and more wise and more demure, very mindful, I feel that I should evolve as a person in terms of the content that I create. So, like I say, we got, so back to the, man, Walter, you going nuts tonight. Thank you, sir. Okay, so back to the question. Hey, I have a question for you guys from Exiles. If you were to describe the theme of this run, what would it be? I, for the life of me, can't find one. Adam, you got anything off the top of your head? Because I think I have one.
I don't know, like redemption, forgiveness, second chances, renewal, rebirth, something like that. Moving on, letting go. These are all, yeah, I guess something like that.
This isn't rage bait. You're not ranting for the sake of stirring shit up. You're ranting because you're legitimately upset with how Ben is being handled. Shut up, Walter. Walter said, Zach only goes on rants now when the Cowboys loses and he runs out of 10. Father's thoughts, I'm not going to even throw your comment up on the screen, man. Come on, dude. Like, don't be a dick. Flyers Goji says, I'm of two minds. I don't like the Ben stuff, but I know the second this Chasm stuff is over, he's gone probably another 30 years, and I don't know how I feel of my second favorite character being gone. I will tell you this. As somebody that's talked about Ben for 15 years specifically. Shut up. Damn it. Damn it, Hobby. Damn it. The number one cause is divorces. Hobby goes, ranting is the number two cause of male pattern baldness. Yep. I'm going to blind you guys with my Chrome Dome right now. Actually, I'm going to bring that down a little bit. So, you know, like I say, shut up, Walter. Wait for the long story to end, Zach. That's the weight that keeps you going. Marvel's doing the WCW Sting, but waiting longer than he. Yeah, well, I feel like that Ben is Sting and freaking Nick Lowe is Hulk Hogan, and nobody but me is going to get that fucking reference. I feel like I got Wells saying, I don't think so, brother. That doesn't work for me, brother. So, well, and Tevye, to kind of dovetail on that point, I think that it was a mistake to bring back Ben.
Yeah.
Because again, people that love Ben Reilly love Peter Parker too. They love Kane. Kane as an anti-hero Spider-Man worked until Spider-Man became that anti-hero character, and then all of a sudden Kane's niche was suddenly filled with Otto, because Otto kind of skirted that line between anti-hero and full-on villain as Spider-Man, right? With Ben, like, now he's essentially becoming Kane, and like, nobody asked for that either. Does that make sense? Like, I don't need him to be the shadow of Peter. Like, I need him to get his memories back and understand that he's...
Are we talking 90s Clone Saga Kane or more modern
90s
Scarlet Spider Kane? Okay.
90s Kane.
Just to clarify. I wasn't totally... I was like, maybe either... Yeah, anyway. Because I was going to say, like, if they're turning him into Kane, like, they already have Kane out there. They're just not using him. So it's like, what would be the point there?
Yeah, I agree with you, Flyer. He should have stayed dead if they were going to do this stuff. It's bad enough the character is grossly misrepresented in the fandom as being edgy. This whole arc has just hammered that trope. Well, and like, it doesn't help that we in a Oscar nominated film that features a Ben Reilly, it's, you know, his 90s angst is like a core part of the character in the few appearances that was. As humorous as that was for a lot of people, me not included, I was more irritated by it. Well, okay, I was of two minds. I was slightly irritated by it, but I understood it, because if you read those early Ben issues, it's like, I'm not a man, I'm a clone. Go see Clone Saga Chronicles, which will be up here on the on the YouTube channel before the end of the year. Fingers crossed. I got to edit out unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to edit out the intro for it to go up. So, anyway, so if you got any other final questions, throw it in the chat. Obviously, there's a slight delay between us talking and the live stream. It's got to go through. The hamster wheel has to roll through. There is some rumors about Spider-Man 97 being possibly revived, but if it is revived, it's going to be well after this. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is done and over with. I also have to edit out. I did have to edit out your snoring. Walter had guest starred on but to be fair, Walter also was guest starring on the absolute drizzling shits that was the Maximum Clonage storyline. Obvious to point out that the name of the game for creators is to make their own character instead of using ones, if the plot would service the first one. That's why we have so many spiders. Okay, so decent question from Tevye. Final question: what is the sole objective for an entire run to the beginning of the end? So, okay, I'll be honest. The objective for this run, I'll be honest, to me, was editorial did not want MJ and Peter together. Fair. Wells gets tasked with separating the two. It's a clunky story. The first year was kind of rough. The first 30 issues were rough. Yeah. The next 30 issues were rough too, or weren't as rough. The Tombstone stuff was good.
Yeah. This is good. Let's talk about the run as a whole. There we go.
Yeah. I think the Kamala Khan stuff is unforgivable, and it is something that's going to weigh down a lot of people's opinion of this run. But the thing is that's the only the halfway point. I think the entire premise of what did Peter do was a failure. Yeah. It's an experiment, and at least look, the last 20 years of Spider-Man has been experimentation, whether you like it or not. I mean, starting with Brand New Day. I mean, the experiment was, why don't we take Peter to where he's no longer married, and we're taking him back to 1979? Yeah. From a character standpoint. What if we have Peter Parker get the science job of his dreams, which is big time? What if, Peter Parker and Doc Ock switch brains, Superior Spider-Man? Which Tevye said that was a crashed and burned. I disagree. That is one of the most popular storylines of the last 20 years, and something that a lot of people really enjoy. Yeah. And there's parts of it that I did enjoy, and there's other parts of it that I think are rightfully should be called out.
It got people talking and excited about the book, even if it wasn't maybe good excitement. There was like kind of a sense of, oh, what's going to happen next? Because it was kind of a curveball that paid off, I guess.
And we get to this run. I mean, we start with, I think when Wells was writing the street level stuff and writing street level characters and the Tombstone stuff and the Vulture stuff, and he's writing classic stuff, classic character stuff, Sinister Six kind of notwithstanding, I thought he did better. The Green Goblin stuff, I don't blame Wells for. He was kind of picking up that baton that was dropped by Spencer. I think there was the Norman versus Norman Peter dynamic was an interesting concept, but I think fundamentally flawed in execution. I think the first half of the Dark Spider-Man story was great.
Yeah.
The second half was needless. I think the artwork, Ed McGuinness did a great job. John Romita Jr. had a lot of good issues, and he carried a lot of this run. And he
did good.
The only character I think he would do other than this one is Daredevil.
Yeah. And he's doing the covers for Daredevil, so
yeah, and he that kind of was his compromise. Was like, hey, can I do something with Daredevil? Because Daredevil is actually his favorite. Daredevil and Spider-Man are his two favorite characters. So, but until we get somebody new at editorial, I think it's not gonna be the same. Or if Lowe gets knocked up, kind of kicked upstairs, and somebody takes over the day-to-day stuff. But a lot of people, Radiac kind of talks about this. Mainly do the rotating writers as fillers. Second is the more talked about. Look, I mean, even when you have Dan, who tends to be more of a sycophant for Spider-Man, and I don't say that being mean. If you've listened to Amazing Spider Talk, they are generally going to be more pro Marvel than most. But when you've lost him, that's a problem. That to me shows that there are people that are slowly starting to realize, hey,
there is a line.
There is a line, and the Mickey Mouseification of Spider-Man is not good. Now, whether this comes from top down, I don't know. My thing about it is that it's less of a thing now that we have all these other spiders. You now have your young Spider-Man and Miles Morales.
Yeah.
You do. That means you can do things with Peter as an adult and having him act like an adult. The other thing about this issue, this run that was very frustrating, was there's not a lot of supporting cast. There was more supporting cast in this final issue.
Yeah.
with Jonah and May than there has been with anybody else. What the hell happened to Randy?
Yeah.
Like, that's a question that I have. Is Randy dead? Because he was like, yeah. Oh. Are you happy I didn't call the hotline tonight? Zach Lover of Hoodie and 12-inch Scarlet Spider Collectibles joiner, and Adam Walter does have a nickname for me because he doesn't know any embarrassing stuff on me. Sure. You definitely made up for it with leaving super chats like this. For now, the only Spidey I plan on investing is Ultimate. I am so tired of 616. Ultimate Spider-Man being a massive success with this open for dark. Okay.
I think it might.
Everybody keeps asking this question. All the people on Reddit, all the people on Twitter, all the people online. Guys, it's not happening.
Well, I think they are. I think it. I saw Donovan comment on Dan's post about his letter, and Donovan said that if the stuff in Spider-Verse and the stuff in the video games, if all of that continues being popular and in the consciousness of everybody, Marvel's gonna have to do something sooner or later. So, and then you have Ultimate,
because now that's becoming the more mainstream thing in the comics.
And so, like, if you go to the comics, yeah. I just think that's I would say, I would not say never. I wouldn't say no to that. And I do think that there probably is some some like looking over at Ultimate being like, why can't I have that? Like, so I don't know. I guess we'll see after 8 deaths, but don't hold your breath yet. But I don't know, but stranger things have happened. I don't think it's going to happen soon, but
yeah,
I do think that point of like what the public consciousness of Spider-Man is in media outside of the comics, and even just looking at what is happening in Ultimate, I think at some point they'll have to take that into consideration, be like, all right, we have to do something else.
Oh, I mean, look, the positive response to Ultimate is something that is important to see, and I think people need to continue to support that title, and you need to continue to buy the title, but to me, they're kind of apples and oranges in terms of, does one influence the other? No, because Ultimate's its own thing, which is the best and worst thing about Ultimate.
Yeah,
because it's not tied to the 616. It can be its own thing. It's allowed to be this pocket universe of 6160. So great. So, and it kind of it allows Marvel, frankly, to have their cake and eat it too right now. Now, true. I think there is a finite time for Ultimate. I think when we get to this time next year, and if Ultimate is still going beyond this time next year, then we have an entirely different conversation. But I still think there's a very finite amount of issues with Ultimate because they're going to let Hickman tell his story and then go from there. Mm-hmm. I think if they kind of let that chapter close and let it be its own story, I think it will benefit long term because that allows the Ultimate brand to be like, hey, if we want to do things that are experimental, we can kind of do that with this type of thing. So I think that, hi, Sarah, welcome to the show. So I think that look, I personally have never been a huge fan of Magic and Spider-Man. I think it's fine if it's like Doctor Strange guest starring and it's like not an ongoing thing. And I love Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom's one of my favorite characters, and I love kind of the parody of Doom. I am worried about this story. But one other thing, too, I think, Adam, you had made a comment earlier tonight. Did you want to talk about how you're taking a bit of a sabbatical? The next few episodes?
Well, it's not a big deal. I just kind of, I don't know, the grind of, I want to take a break.
I mean, dude, basically, you've been on 100 plus episodes.
I just want to like kind of, I want to check in with 8 deaths at the halfway point. So like end of January, and then probably check in again with issue 70, that's essentially my plan. I've been thinking about it over the past couple months. Like, what do I want to do here?
Well, as obviously
it's essentially the announcement. Because it was like, oh, when that little teaser came out that like, oh, the next thing is Joe Kelly, and I was like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, and I've been thinking like, do I want to keep doing it the way we're doing it? Do I want to split it in half? Do I want to just, do it in a different way? But I think taking a couple months off, checking in at about the halfway point, and then coming back for the second half, I think that's the way to go.
Look, I mean, Neil's not on here tonight because being principled. But he was
on the last show.
Yeah, he was.
That was the call-in show, I guess.
Was the call-in show, so it was a little bit different.
But he did read the book. I know
he did read the book.
He liked the Wolverine story.
He liked the Wolverine story. I think he liked the Gleason story, like the Gleason art, because he's a Gleason stan. But like I say, it's one of those things where I feel like it's difficult to kind of look at this story and not be more than a little under. Look, I understand why people don't like the Wells run. I think this is going to be kind of looked at kind of like the Denny O'Neil run, where there's things that people will like about it, but it's not necessarily hugely memorable.
I think, well, because here's the thing. Here's what I liked about the run. I liked these last few Tombstone issues for the most part.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think 59 in particular has Romita Jr.'s best art during the whole run. That was just it was all cylinders, boom.
Yeah.
I liked, what was it, issue 50, that first Spider-Man Green Goblin fight before the sin swapping shenanigans. Like, I
Yeah.
really liked that. Again, great McGinnis art. That was another firing all cylinders thing. The whole dark Spidey thing that had great Gleason art, that was pretty good. That was a little, I've said this before. I feel like that should have been the whole catalyst for what did Peter do. I think if Wells, but who knows how much of this Wells was planning in advance. He had said that he was treating it all as a writing experiment, kind of going backwards from, the mystery, basically the answer to the question. I don't think that I really think that
it was the jeopardy of storytelling.
Yeah. I don't know, that first year was kind of like, it was okay to rough. Like, I don't know, like, there was good art, but I just think that what they did with Mary Jane and then the Paul thing, like, they dangled the carrot with Spencer, and then well, really, we got the carrot with Spencer, but then they like kind of took it away and like threw it in the trash or something. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
they just, and I really think that was just, I mean, as we've seen, it was really the straw that broke the camel's back with all the Paul stuff. I just think that was a huge misstep. But yeah, I don't know. And everything else was like okay to kind of rough. But I guess those three highlights, those were good to great.
I enjoyed
Sometimes
that Vulture
fine,
story.
but yeah, that was okay. But then that, like, I don't know, the suit was unnecessary. The Oscorp suit. I don't know.
A future Marvel Legends suit.
If that, like, I mean,
well, I think it's actually
it'll
rumored that they're actually doing it.
it probably will be in like a year or so, but I don't know. And then that's the thing, like, we got another new costume coming up. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. This run, I think overall, if I had to give this run a grade, it'd probably be like C+. I'd probably give Spencer like a B+, thinking about it.
Yeah, retroactively, I think I would give, Spencer run a B+, A-. Actually, I'd probably give it an A-. I enjoyed most of it.
Maybe,
very, very good.
A- is, I'd consider
it. Beyond gets a C+, would have been a B+ until the end. The end absolutely sucked the air out of that run.
I'd probably give Beyond like a B or so, maybe a B+, like somewhere in that range. Yeah. Probably somewhere there.
This one's a C+. I mean, Look, we have had worse runs on Spider-Man. I've read every issue of Spider-Man, like of the main titles, except for some team-ups and the annuals. But I've literally read every core title up through, and I'm in like 95 now in my read-through. I'm rereading the Clone Saga. So like, I have reread everything up to, there may be a few issues that I have not read of, like Tangle Web and Web Spinners. So once we get to 2000s, once I get to 2000 in my read through, there's going to be a few that I haven't read yet. But for the most part, like ASM wise, I've read every issue of ASM.
Impressive.
Like it's a difficult thing to look at as a run. Will I, as we get further and further away, because I've found myself enjoying the Dan Slott stuff during Brand New Day more than I did when it came out. So we'll see. But honestly, I feel like this was for it just being the two of us tonight, Adam, I think this was one of our better episodes because we've been able to have that type of dialogue back and forth. Hey, he's not wrong. On bad runs, it's coincidental for equal mistreatment of MJ and Sandman to be present here in Maggie Byrne. Every time Marvel,
I do have a bit of a soft spot for the first like few issues of the Mackie Byrne run, just because I was picking them like that. That was when those were
Senator Ward.
Well, no, I didn't really get. Well, he was like in the beginning, right? But I don't think I got to the whole like whatever happens with him later. Just like the first I don't know 5 issues or something. I was picking them up off the rack at 7-Eleven. I got the first issue. I was like, oh wow! Like, and I remember that being there, and I remember Web Spinners being there.
Yeah.
Spider Girl was there. That was a cool time.
Was a good time.
Anyway,
you shut your whore mouth, Walter. Clone Saga was not that bad. Getting me riled up for no fucking reason.
It was just messy, basically.
Look, the middle part is bad. Okay, the beginning is good. The ending is good. The middle, it's ass. Okay,
that is pretty fair. But you know, people just don't like. I get why people say it's the worst because of what it tried to do, and it really was kind of like the first. It does seem, at least, that it was the first time that they were really trying to break up the marriage.
Yeah. Well, and
it turned around, but that was kind of like
once the editorial got meddling in, and the sales department got meddling in, and they're told, "Hey, we got to stretch this. You have this finite story that's 6 months long."
Yeah.
And we got to keep it going because you're the only department right now other than X-Men that's making any money. And in the early days, they were outselling X-Men. Then, it's very indicative of the mindset that Marvel was in at the time. And I think that while as a story, if the reveal had been in 400 or if the reveal had been before 400 and ended with 400 and 400 being that triumphant, like Peter is back as Spider-Man, then I think that it would be remembered far more fondly than it ended up coming because you kept bringing in other chefs. Yeah. From editorial to writers to artists. And instead of it being this self-contained story, it became this kind of era that ultimately led to people. And it's similar, there is similarities between the Clone Saga and Brand New Day. We did a debate during Clone Saga Chronicles run, but that was also during when Brand New Day was going on. And I think that maybe one day, maybe we do this for Patreon if you guys want. Where we kind of revisit that topic. What's more controversial? What has had a more impact in terms of when you compare those two eras of Spider-Man. Speaking of Patreon, what a segue. Come on, man. That was good. We got our patrons over at patreon.com/Spideydude Network. We got our sensational tier: Allison, Cindy, Ed, Eric, Georgia, Greg, Janelle, Jessica, Joyce, Catherine, Kale, Laura, Howard, Lump, Moose, Master, Drammond, Phoenician, RJ, Vicky. Thank you guys for your support over on Patreon. We got Sarah and Tara as our spectacular patrons, and Spideydude VIPs, Scott, Vinkman, and Walter. Thank you guys for your support. And then you see our Friendly Neighborhood tier. Thank you guys to the Friendly Neighborhood tier, as always, over on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Spideydude Network. If you've not checked out Patreon, you get perks like the exclusive Books of X podcast between me and Neil. You also get the commentaries for the MTV animated series. We have wrapped that up, and we'll have that, I think, through the end of the year. And then the beginning of next year, we're going to be doing Unlimited. Voices from the Eyrie just recorded released a new episode, and they're going to be starting kind of rebooting back up. They'll do a couple of episodes throughout the month of November. They'll take a holiday break, and then they'll be back from hiatus soon enough. We will be doing more slot symposiums between now and the end of the year. Clone Saga Chronicles and Spectacular Radio. Clone Saga Chronicles celebrating the 15th anniversary of the show. You can check that out over on Spideydude.com. Spectacular Radio, the show all about the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series. ASM Classics, the show all about Spider-Man from the beginning. Make My Mayday, the show all about Spider-Girl and her world. That's the sister program to this show. Sabi Samara Podcast, going to be talking about the death of Harry Osborn next episode. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And right after that, they'll be talking about Maximum Carnage. Oh boy. Godspeed to him. So check us out on our different and various platforms. If you want to leave us a voicemail like Walter usually does, but he decided to leave super chats tonight. Thank you again to Walter. You can leave us a voicemail at 818-925-6631. If you have not already found us over on YouTube, find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Spideydude Radio Network. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Spideydude Network. At Spideydude Radio is our Twitter handle on Twitter/X. So find us there. Of course, we will be back in a couple of weeks with, I believe, the Spectacular Spideydude Experience, where we'll be covering the next issue of Spectacular Spider-Men, excuse me. Then we'll be covering another issue of Ultimate, and then the first chapter of 8 Deaths of Spider-Man. So, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being a part of this, the season finale. Season 4, Wells, comes to an end right now, guys.